right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the MongoDB Podcast live streaming from just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on the East Coast of the United States. Welcome, everybody. We've got a fantastic discussion lined up for you today. We're going to be talking about local development experience and setting up your development environment, knowing that you're most likely going to leverage services in the cloud. How can you better prepare your local development environment to do that? Well, MongoDB is always thinking about the developer. We're always thinking about the developer environment. Sorry, let me get on mic. And today we're going to be talking about how we're enabling you, the developer, to have a great experience preparing to deploy your applications in the cloud. I've got a couple of great guests today. They've been on the podcast in the past. I'm just going to bring them on board. Let's bring Jakub and Bianca. Welcome to the podcast live. It's great to have you on the show once again. Bianca, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Let them know who you are and what you do.
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Bianca. I'm a software engineer at MongoDB. I work in the APIX team at the moment. I have been here for almost 2 years, and I work both in some API solutions for MongoDB, but also in the Atlas CLI, which is what we are going to talk about today.
Command line interface. Awesome. Jakub, let folks know who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jakub. I'm a product manager on MongoDB Atlas team, and I work with few products. And the first one is the Atlas CLI that we'll be talking about more today. And the other one is MongoDB Administration API. And I work with Bianca in one team, and we have also another API experience team. So we have a lot of engineers to focus on the developer experience.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to assume that there are folks coming into the stream today that know nothing about MongoDB Atlas. And we'll just say that Atlas is it's a database platform in the cloud. Jakub, maybe in product marketing manager language, explain what Atlas is and why it's important for developers today.
Of course. Atlas is a pretty amazing solution if you think about it from a developer point of view, because historically, before Atlas was there, you had to run a MongoDB or any other database on your own, and you had to manage, scale, deploy across different environments on your own. And even though you might be using cloud services to host your production workloads, you still had to deploy the database on those services on your own. With Atlas, we take care of that for you. Basically, the only thing you need to do is deploy your cluster, load your data, link it to your application, and you're good to go. We take care of everything from the monitoring, auto-scaling, cross-deployments across multiple providers, if that's your need. So it's very convenient. So you can focus on delivering the differentiating value for your customers instead of managing the infrastructure.
Yeah, alleviating the work of managing the infrastructure. Major selling point for developers. Bianca, you're a software engineer and you work on all sorts of tools. Why is it important for folks to have command line access to some of these capabilities, and then we'll get into the CLI as a product and the main topic for today, but talk a little bit about your local development environment and why it's important that we provide these tools.
Cool. So first of all, why it's important to have support on the CLI side of things. I think everyone speaks a bit of CLI, right? So everyone is used to use several different tools in the CLI, and it's no different with Atlas. So that's why we have the Atlas CLI. It's a quick way for you to manage your clusters or deployments that you have in the cloud. And why it's important to have it locally now, right? So we added support for local deployments so that basically anyone who wants to test their cluster before they go into production or before they go into the cloud, we make sure that they can, test locally the clusters. And anyone that is new as well to Atlas as a whole, but is familiar with MongoDB, it's a quick way to use the CLI and then create a cluster deployment. Sorry, create a deployment. You can do search. You can do so many different things that we will talk about. I can't talk yet, but yeah, it's just a really, really quick way to do so.
Yeah. So I want to double click on that. I want to say hi to Marcus Egan, who's in the stream. Hey, buddy. So command line interface and setting up a local development environment that enables you to use the tools that you're going to use when you deploy your application in production. What does it mean to interact with Atlas, which is a cloud-based service, from the command line? What does that mean?
Well, you will probably, yeah, you will have a similar experience to Atlas. You are going to use the same commands as you would use with Atlas CLI,
Mhm.
and it basically means you just don't need to like get very concerned about what you're deploying to the cloud, about the cost, or about anything of the sort, where it's deployed, about latency, or anything of the sort. It's running in your local machine.
Mhm.
You can quickly perform any type of search. You can stop, you can start your clusters at any time.
Fantastic. And that's Atlas CLI. So you're from your command line, you're doing the very same thing you could do with the Atlas GUI, the web-based interface. And today what we're talking about, Jakob, is we're enabling some additional capabilities. And folks, if you're just joining the stream, we're talking about command line interface to Atlas's database as a service, and we're going to show a demo. We're going to show what this looks like. So stay tuned for that. But Jakob, so to talk about the new features that we've enabled in the command line interface.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this has been like super exciting project to start with, because we saw how much hype and need is there among the customers. Because today you have Atlas, you're running your production on Atlas, probably you're staging too, but when you're developing, a lot of the engineers are used to doing it still in a more traditional way. Even though those services on production run in the cloud, you still want to replicate those services locally on your computer for some of the reasons that Bianca mentioned as well, like latency being one of them, and just simple convenience and quick feedback loop. And with Atlas, you have core database, but you have a lot of services around it. And whereas the core database, probably for the local development, you were using MongoDB community to have that capability replicated locally, but you didn't have that access to this additional developer data platform services like Atlas Search or Vector Search, being those the most popular out there. With that new solution, we are bringing the core MongoDB Atlas capabilities with the core database, Atlas Search, and Vector Search to your local machine. So basically, Atlas is still one platform with some of the services available locally and in the cloud.
Mind blowing. So when I first I ran the demo script and I looked at how this works, it's pretty incredible. So it's using container technology to implement a cluster of MongoDB instances on your local machine, right? So for my laptop, I deployed a MongoDB Atlas instance locally. Well, I guess it wouldn't be an Atlas instance. It would be a MongoDB instance locally, a cluster. And then I enabled a text search cluster. Why is that so difficult? Why has it not been done previously? Maybe talk a little bit about the complexity associated with deploying Atlas Search and Atlas Vector Search.
Right.
Maybe Jakob, take that one.
Sure. So I think the complexity comes with the fact that as a developer data platform, all the services are being natively architected and built for the cloud. And we operate in a service-oriented architecture where in reality, these different components are separate applications. And the separate applications have their different ways to deploy, scale, and handle different situations that you can have in the production. It needs to have the proper backup, resiliency, performance, all these different aspects that you need to manage when you're working with the services. So bringing that services for you to run yourself locally means either handling a lot of that complexity that we are dealing with when running it in the cloud for people to deal with on their own machines, or trying to encapsulate that in a simple and easy form that feels like the same experience that you can have in the cloud. And this is what we achieved with this local development experience. You basically do not have to deal with any of the complexity of managing those services locally. Instead, Atlas CLI is taking care of all of that.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, congratulations on the capabilities that you've enabled, Bianca. I mean, I took it for a spin. It's really elegant. I mean, it's easy to use. And if you're just joining the stream today, we're talking about command line interface, setting up your local development environment, and enabling the very same services that you're going to use in the cloud right on your local development environment. So I'm excited to take a look at it. Is it ready for us to take a peek at, Jakob? I'd like the developers that are tuning in to see this thing.
We are more than ready.
Okay.
All right, let me share my screen.
While we do that, you know what? I don't know what I do with my banner. Hey, everybody, if you're waiting for the demo, we'll be up shortly. I want you to click the links in the description below. There's some documentation that goes along with this. It'll be interesting for you to read that, as well as watch it in action. So let's add that to the stage. Here we go. We can see your screen now, Jakob.
Awesome, excellent. I will get started with a simple introduction to the Atlas CLI for those that haven't seen it. So as you can see with the Atlas CLI, you type Atlas and you have access to the entire developer data platform. And until recently, all of that was available only in the cloud. But with the introduction of the Atlas deployments set of commands in the Atlas CLI, these capabilities are now available not only on Atlas, but also on your local machines. And as you can see, we start with a basic set of functionality, where the first one that I will show you is to deploy your first local setup. So it takes you through an interactive mode where you can use a keyboard to choose a lot of the settings that you would like to customize. So we are obviously starting with local, but the same set of commands can be used for both local and Atlas. So it feels completely seamless whether you are working in the cloud or on your local machine. So let's dive into it. Here you can see a set of default settings to make things very, very easy for you to start with. So we have the name, MongoDB version, and the port number on which the local setup will be running. But for the purpose of this demo, I would like to customize a little bit. So I will change the name to my demo deployment. I will go with MongoDB 7.0, but there's 6.0 as well available. And what the CLI does right now, it scans the open ports and it randomly chooses one of them, so that you don't run into accidental issues of having this port being taken. But you can obviously choose your own if you like. I will go with the default one. Once that's starting, the Atlas CLI is pulling the containers under the hood. And at this point, we have containers running with MongoDB Atlas with the basic core database functionality and Atlas Search and Vector Search services under the hood. So at the end of the process, Atlas CLI gives you an option to choose from how you would like to connect to your just created deployment. So we can use MongoDB shell. If you like to stay within the terminal, you can use MongoDB Compass, which is like very popular standalone GUI application to interact with your database. Or you can simply skip and grab your connection string that you see over here and put it into your driver to start working with the local deployment straight away. For now, I will use MongoSH. This basically connects to the just created deployment. I can show databases. It's empty, obviously. So I will exit and get back to the CLI. And the next thing I would like to do is to show you a list of my deployments. I have some deployments pre-provisioned, and two of my deployments are on Atlas, and I have a bunch running locally. In fact, on my local RS replica set, I have the sample data loaded in. So I can use that to create a search index also on my local machine, because I would like to, my application uses the semantic search, and I would like to use create a search index and be able to run search queries from my application. So I'm just going to connect to that deployment. And that's another pretty cool feature that we didn't have available also on Atlas before. It allows you to seamlessly connect to your local and Atlas deployments from the command line without the need to, grabbing a connection string and using other software to connect. You can do it straight away from here. So I'm connecting to my local RS. I'm still using MongoSH. I'm checking the databases. Okay. I have some sample data loaded. I use sample and flicks. I made because something is actually hiding what I can see on my screen. I need to exit, clear, and connect again, because I didn't see what I'm typing. I'm going to connect again to my local RS with MongoSH. Excellent. So I will use sample mflix. All right. And now I'm in the sample mflix database. And what I will do is I will grab a comment to create a search index from a Mongo shell. This is the command. It's run, and it should have a search index created. And what I will do now, I will run a search query using aggregation pipeline on that dataset on my local deployment to query that sample database. I'm going to paste it from my clipboard.
Okay, so we're searching for text.
We
Query
are
is
searching.
baseball, and you're looking in the plots field, the plot attribute of the movie database.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And what I notice is that the index I created has 2 X's in the name, and my query has actually a 1X in the index name.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to fix that.
It wouldn't be a demo if something didn't go a little awry.
Exactly. Now it worked.
Okay.
So I fixed the the name of the search index I just created in the previous step.
Yep.
We are looking for baseball in the plot, and the results are the plots that contain baseball keyword.
Very cool. So this is running against a local instance of Atlas Search, which leverages Lucene. And I think that we hinted at this before. This is where some of the complexity comes in. In order to do this, in order to have a text search index created in Atlas, we do that for you. But if you wanted to do it on your own, you could spin up your own MongoDB Atlas instance. You could spin up your own Lucene instance and then sync those to index the data in Lucene from your MongoDB database. But of course, that's going to be much more complex. And what you've shown here, and it's almost like deceiving how simple this is. What people don't see is when you do that Atlas deployments list, you're seeing what's been deployed locally. I have a couple of questions, but I want to take the questions from the audience first. Are you good to pause for a moment and take some questions?
Oh, totally.
Okay,
Let's do
cool.
that.
All right, so Tim Manning is asking, would I have access to Atlas device or device sync via the command line interface? So I guess this is the Atlas API command line interface question. Bianca, you want to take that one? Or
yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
go
can
ahead.
take that one. I think this is a question more related to the App Services CLI, which is which allows for the device sync capabilities. So it's slightly different part of the platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So device sync is part of the formerly known as Realm portfolio, and folks typically use that for synchronizing iOS applications or where the Realm database lives. Great question, though. I hope that answered your question, Tim. Thank you. And Luce, our very own Luce Carter, is asking, how does it handle not having the selected tool installed? So when you said Atlas Deployments Connect, what if you don't have Compass or Magash installed?
I can take this one. Cool. Okay, so first of all, MongoDB should come together with Atlas CLI. If you download it using Homebrew, you should get MongoDB together. But if you don't have, or if you uninstall for any reason, then the command is going to error, a very clear error saying you don't have it and suggesting for you to install it. And the same goes for Compass as well.
Mhm.
Compass is not bundled, but you will get an error saying you don't have Compass and suggesting that you install it.
Great. Okay, so MongoSH comes with it. Compass you'll have to download separately. So as a developer, I'm fascinated with what's happening behind the scenes. I noticed the deployments automatically select a non-privileged port above 1023. That's good. So I'm assuming you don't have to have root access or admin access on your device to install and use the Atlas CLI. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We are
Okay.
going to resolve the ports for you.
Okay. Now, what if I have previously installed MongoDB instances locally? Will Atlas CLI recognize those?
Great question. It won't, because we use containers. We have a whole setup on how we manage the local deployments. So it won't show up in deployments list as of now. At least at public preview, it's not something we have.
Yeah. And we didn't do the... Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Jakob.
Sorry, go ahead. Just wanted to chime in to add to what Bianca said, that I think it's important to recognize that under the hood, we have two separate containers running, and we establish connectivity between them. So there is a little bit of magic that needs to be handled under the hood. So that's why we are still not supporting the existing kind of MongoDB instances that you might be running on your own.
Yeah. So I'm curious about where does the persistence layer live for the Atlas CLI? You're obviously storing some metadata associated with these Atlas instances. Where does that live?
Cool. Okay, so we don't actually own any sort of metadata. So the way we do this magic happen is we use under the hood, we have some containers, and we also use Podman to manage those containers. So if we ever want to get any information about the containers that we are running, we can easily do that by calling some Podman commands on like what is available. So as of now, we didn't have any requirements to store this metadata.
Okay. What about licensing?
Yes. So
And
that's one. Yeah, go ahead.
the reason I ask is, well, let's say I don't have a Docker license, or I think it's important to talk about the technologies that we're leveraging under the covers.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Yeah, so basically we use Docker and we use Podman to spin up the Docker images.
Hmm.
So we did decide to use Podman because it has a somewhat permissive license. It's a good license for you to work on, but of course, in your company, you are probably going to have to check if you're okay to use it. Uh, yeah, this is what we decided to use for
Hmm.
the public preview. Jakob, if you want to add anything else.
Sure. Yeah, I think the beauty of the Podman of using Podman Reshoot is that Podman is an open source tool. So basically, it's pretty open license type that you can think of. Um, the other side of licensing and is that the local development experience that we just introduced, you can use it completely for free. It doesn't even require having an Atlas account. If you think about it, you can just install the Atlas CLI,
Hmm.
and you can deploy deploy that local environment on your machine without having the Atlas account. It's totally fine, and you can use it for development, testing, different types of testing, whether it's like unit testing, integration testing, whether this is gonna be part of your CI pipeline. It's totally fine. The only thing we ask you not to do is to run it on production. It's completely not production type of software. It's
Hmm.
just for development and testing purposes.
Can I ask you to explain why? Why is that?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's a certain level of complexity associated with running software on production, and uh, there are certain levels of reliability, performance, and scalability considerations that need to be taken into consideration when using software on production. And because this is again currently two services running on a machine that is self-managed, although we are taking the heavy load of managing that on the CLI. Managing live production load is a completely different story, requiring completely different requirements. And for that purposes, we designed Atlas. And this way or another, you will be running your production on cloud providers, and we provide support to all three major ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Terrific. That's good guidance. I think. Okay. So that makes sense. I'm curious about how the tool comes together and what you use to develop it. But folks watching the stream, let us know if you have any questions. If you want to see something in particular about the deployment of Atlas CLI, if you've got questions about it, let those rip in the comments. Oh, and make sure. So we can't really post clickable links on the platforms that we're using for streaming, but there are links in the description. So down below, there's a link to learn more about the Atlas CLI. I'd love for you to click that, check out the documentation. It's going to explain a lot. Keep that handy as you begin to use it. Unless we get any additional questions, Bianca, talk about the development of Atlas CLI. What do you use? What language are you writing in, and what's that like?
Sure, yeah. The CLI is open source, first of all. So if anyone wants to go deeper into how it works, you can look into GitHub. And we write it in Golang. So the whole thing, it's basically written in Golang. And we interface, actually, Podman has a Golang library. So we could easily integrate that as well. And MongoDB as well, like any MongoDB commands that we wanted to use, we could use also MongoDB library. And yeah, in terms of the development, just like what Jakob said, it was about trying to make sure we could connect those two main things together, which was the MongoDB instance that we were running on a container and the search instance that we were running in another container, and that previously was only available in Atlas. So there was a whole cross-team work as well with the search team within MongoDB, which was great. And we we're able to collaborate with them in order to find a solution and a way for us to have those two connected in the most simple way as possible, without having to ask the customers as well to authenticate, right? To log into Atlas. It was also something important for us that we had to work together. But that was about it.
Yeah. How long did it take you to develop Atlas CLI?
Oh,
How long have you been working on it?
wait, Atlas CLI as a whole or the
Yeah.
feature?
Well, let's talk about Atlas CLI first and then the feature.
Okay. For developing the whole Atlas CLI, I don't know how long it took because it was an effort for so many engineers in the team that were here before me. So I don't actually know for how long it took, like to have the first version of the CLI. Do you know, Jakob?
Yeah, I think CLI was launched last year on MongoDB, back then still called World, in New York City in June. And I think it took us around 6 months to get it before that launch, to get started. We inherited a lot of the functionality from the legacy MongoDB command line interface. So that helped speed things up. So we didn't have like a bare bones kind of start. We had some functionality available. And then we brought it to a level where it is dedicated to MongoDB Atlas. And since then, it's been like, year and a half almost. We've been developing with a few developers in different pace, like adding new capabilities that have been added also to Atlas in the meantime to add support for those capabilities to the Atlas CLI, but also work on this kind of pretty groundbreaking parts of functionality like the local development experience.
Yeah. So there's a question from Parasha3. Can I develop code for app services and triggers and functions locally?
Yeah. Again, this this is more related to the app services and app services command line interface. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not yet available. I think this is something that the app services team is looking to address, but I would leave it up to them to speak to more details of that.
Okay, got you. And one from a LinkedIn user, just switched to serverless.do. These features for serverless, do these features work for serverless instances?
Well, this is interesting question, because if you think about it, on Atlas you can deploy the dedicated clusters and you can deploy serverless clusters, and there are like two types of deployments that you can think of on the cloud. When it comes to developing locally, it doesn't really matter if that's serverless. It's a deployment that you have locally, and you need the right components that you will use in the cloud to be reflected in your local development environment.
Yeah, I mean, it begs the question: what is serverless? But I think if I were to try and, I guess, translate the question, if I use Atlas CLI, can I manage instances that I've deployed in Atlas in the cloud that are of a type serverless?
Oh, absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
You can.
Yeah.
You can actually do Atlas serverless.
Oh, there you go.
You have a bunch of commands available, and you can create. You have the full CRUD and some additional services like backups available for those serverless deployments.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, once again, congratulations on a really great deployment. What state of life is the Atlas CLI features that we've talked about today? Where are we at in the life stage?
It's a great question. It's actually pretty early stage. We just launched it in public preview on September 26th. Public preview means it's available platform support. Today, it runs on Red Hat and macOS M1 and Intel chips. And we are looking to expand it to other OSs like Windows and Ubuntu. So platform support is definitely something that is coming in the later phases, but definitely it's the first, touch point. It's with the real world, and we would love to hear from you when you run, if you run to any potential issues, stability, challenges, bugs, anything. If you have feedback, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to use feedback.mongodb.com to raise ideas in the Atlas CLI section, or use our community. We have the Atlas CLI tag there, and you can use that to raise questions or any type of feedback. But definitely something we would like to evolve with the customer needs. We definitely didn't want to overinvest to delay the delivery of that amazing capability to the market. So we wanted to start with some basic functionality and hear in which direction the users would like to have to see it evolving.
Yeah. Can you talk about anything on the horizon? What's in the roadmap?
I actually was thinking how much I can tell, but there are a few things that I briefly mentioned. So definitely expanding to the wider set of platform support. The other one is improving any potential stability/performance challenges that might come across in meantime. Third, we definitely want to make sure that this whole amazing part of functionality will run from the official Atlas CLI Docker image. This is very important because I know that a lot of you use Docker to run their infrastructure and manage services and deploy even locally or as part of their CI pipelines. That's why these are the top 3 priorities that we are looking into. But moving forward, we are also looking into a few exciting things, like bringing some more of the Atlas only, our cloud-only Atlas services that are available out there to the local experience. So, stay tuned. There's just much more to come.
Yeah, exciting times. Well, I want to thank you both for joining me today. We covered a lot in a short amount of time. We had a great demo of the Atlas command line interface. You deployed some local instances. You showed how you could manage instances in the cloud. You showed the new capabilities around deploying and managing Atlas Search. You didn't really show vector search, but you want to talk a little bit about that before we break?
Bianca, do you want to take that one?
Oh, yeah. So basically, I think the same way as Jakob did the index creation, the only difference is you would use the same command for creating indexes, and then you would create a vector search index. There are several tutorials at MongoDB about how you can create how you can structure a vector search index, and you can do so like you just provide a file. And then you can just perform vector search the same way, depending on your application. If you are using OpenAPI, there are tutorials explaining to you how you can plug into your OpenAPI tokens and, integrate the whole flow with vector search. But at the moment, it's supported. We have the KNN beta operator at the moment, and it's supported. You can try it out.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, if you're listening to that and you're excited by vector search, our very own Jesse Hall, who's moderating today, is doing a lot of content around vector search. Make sure you follow on LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss a show. There's going to be a lot of content coming up around vector search. I'm really excited by these developments, and I just love the focus that we've got on making the developer's job easier. Jakob, anything further you want to add before we wrap?
I think one last thing I wanted to mention that I didn't manage to get to in the live demo is that all the commands that you saw in this very nice, intuitive and interactive mode can be also used programmatically. Shell scripts So you can use a set of flags for each of those commands and run them in a completely non-interactive mode. And that's going to make things easy for automating some of the daily work you do.
Yeah. So like a CI/CD pipeline, you can incorporate those commands right in your pipeline. Fantastic. Bianca, anything else before we wrap?
No, I think I'll just say the same as Jakob in terms of the CLI is open source, and if you find any issues, this is a public preview feature. Please share with us your feedback and let us know how we can improve. That's about it.
Fantastic. Well, thanks once again. It's feedback.mongodb.com. It's our feedback system. You can test out the Atlas CLI. You can install, give it a whirl. Make sure you check out the links. We're going to end the stream shortly, and I want you to click those links before we leave so that you have them. You can bookmark them. So thanks, everybody. Bianca, Jakob, thanks very much.
Thank you for having us.
Have a great day,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.